Good morning. This is Pastor Stewart Waterhouse with my video blog, 10 Minutes After Midnight. This is part 3 of the kill list. And the government's attempt to assassinate me.
So his job was every Tuesday morning, you get the kill list, which is what they called it. Every Tuesday morning at the White House, CIA people meet with the White House counsel and their people, come up with a list of people to kill that week. Rick gets the list. He sends his guys out. He goes out all around the world. You kill the guy that's on the list, and you come back and you get the next list the next Tuesday. And I said, wow, that's not good. Right? I mean, none of these people have been charged with a crime. If these are such bad people, I mean, this is the United States of America.
Yeah.
We have a constitution. If these guys are so bad, charge them with a crime. You can't just decide you don't like somebody's politics and go and blow their brains out. And as it turned out, some of them were American citizens who had never been charged with a crime. Again, some things are right or wrong, and this is wrong.
Maybe while I was in custody, the FBI manufactured charges that I was conspiring to assassinate the President of the United States. And of course, that brought in the Secret Service with more interrogations where I was denied a lawyer during interrogation. And I think the purpose of all this was in order to prejudice the judge so that the FBI could tell the judge, look, this guy's trying to assassinate the president. You got to give us more leeway to violate his constitutional rights, or at least, for the court to look the other way, right? Because all my constitutional rights were violated, my right to a lawyer, my right to a trial, a whole bunch more that I could get into. My right to bail was held without even a bail hearing, right? And I at least had a right to a hearing so that the judge would find that I was a flight risk or whatever. That never happened. Everything was violated. So what I'm concerned with is that post-custody, after I got out, that somehow this accusation that I was conspiring to assassinate the President of the United States, then President Clinton, must have stuck and worked its way up into the highest levels of the U.S. government. Okay? So after I got out, I did various things, sometimes working with different intelligence agencies, some foreign intelligence, some domestic intelligence. And of course, it was all above board. If I worked for foreign intelligence, I informed the CIA what I was doing. And then I also informed foreign intelligence that I had told the CIA so that there's no misunderstanding like I'm a double agent or like I'm working for the Russians, or, I was working for the Russians, but not, I'm an American. My loyalty is to America. So that there'd be no misunderstanding. I was above board on everything. But at some point, I was informed by a high-level intelligence agent. And maybe I should back up a little bit. I had given the agent information, digital information, and when he plugged it into his computer, it showed that the information I gave him also was compromised with malware, spyware that was on my computer. And he had a high-level antivirus, the type we don't have, which identified this malware to him. And the problem was this wasn't a common malware. It was spyware that belonged not even to the lowest level FBI type spyware, but very sophisticated, high-level spyware. And he's like, why would somebody be tracking me that way and spying on me? So he informed me of it, number one. And of course, I can't tell you who this intelligence agent is or who he worked for or what department or even foreign or domestic, because if I do, I'm afraid of the blowback. I don't dare, okay? So I'm sorry, I'm just not going to reveal that information. But he looked into it, and he discovered something else, and he got back to me again. And he says, in looking into this high-level tracking spyware, I found out that you are on a kill list and that you're in danger of being terminated. And well, I was a little bit shocked, but I already know I'm an adversary of the FBI. Um, but he said it wasn't the FBI. Okay, it was higher than the FBI, which makes sense because I think when the FBI, they don't just have the authority to go out and kill people. They do kill people, but they do it in a rogue way. But to get on the official kill list, which has to be signed off by the president of the United States, that's a pretty high level kill list, and that's done through the heads of various intelligence agencies that get together. It used to be they got together every Tuesday, um, and then the president would sign off on this person being targeted to be killed. Now, the president probably never knew each person he was signing off. It would be given to him in batch. You know, a whole bunch of names would be given to him at once. He'd kind of flip over it. I mean, how much time does he have? Maybe one name would stick out, and he'd ask the person briefing him about that one name. And, you know, maybe the person would bring up his tablet and say, oh, this is a goat herder in Afghanistan. We want to drone him because when one of our soldiers was looking at him through the binoculars, he gave the soldier the finger. And, you know, and so the president would sign off, right? But along with that would be a whole bunch of other names that never got really exactly reviewed by the president, but it was placed there by these the head of the various agencies. And somehow the executive branch considered this was the constitutional met requirements of due process, that due process being the deliberation of the intelligence agencies as to who to put on this kill list. And that was the due process. Okay? No court due process. You know, the Constitution doesn't actually say court, does it? We believe, of course, it means court due process. And unfortunately, when you get on this kill list, as we know about the black journalist that got on it, an American citizen, he tried to challenge it in court, and it ultimately was thrown out of court for lack of standing. Basically, that set then precedent that the courts won't interfere. This is a political affair, the kill list, in the executive branch, and the courts won't interfere with the executive branch. Not in this way, anyway. And so we know American citizens have gotten on this kill list. I believe I was, as I was informed, okay? And so what happened shortly after I was in, you know, and I asked him, I said, look, was it the Mossad? Because the fact is, twice I got death threats from Israel. Okay, the first time my cell phone was hacked so that my screensaver displayed to me in Hebrew that they were going to kill me. And yes, I took my cell phone and did make a police report. And then the second time, it was actually on Facebook. And again, the IDF said they were going to come to kill me. It was an IDF soldier on Facebook making a comment, which as soon as I read the comment was then deleted. And so, you know, I asked the intelligence agency, well, is it the Mossad that is going to kill me? You know, what kind of kill list are we talking about? He says, no, it's the U.S. government. And I asked him very closely. I said, you know, Israel hates me because of the kind of stuff I say about Israel and criticizing what they're doing in Gaza about murdering little children and raping little boys and all the things Israel does. He said, no, it's not Israel. It is the U.S. government. And he didn't know why I got added on the kill list, and it was really puzzling to him. Obviously, he was high level to be able to know and have access to that kill list. So it's very scary. They just said it wasn't the FBI, who, you know, is my arch enemy, and it wasn't Israeli Mossad. So it was just high level kill list. And, you know, after, when you're on it and the president signs off, if you're foreign, they might drone strike you, or they might do various things to kill you using the U.S. military or using special assassination teams. If you're domestic, they're unlikely to use a drone, but they might have a sniper do it. And of course, I'm domestic because I'm an American citizen. And so shortly after I was informed, a bullet came through the wall. Now, I was living in a large tent. It's built out of Costco carport tent. Okay, and then I had turned the tent into a living quarters located in the pen of my goats. I had 200 goats, and like a good shepherd, I lived with my goats, which is why I was in the tent. But in this tent, I still had a queen size bed, and I was in comfort. Okay, a carpet on the floor and a couch in there, and a dresser for my clothes. It wasn't camping at all, but it still was a portable tent. And then, of course, for the walls in my tent, I had the Costco tarp type wall. And then I had to reinforce the tent because the 200 goats would all want to sleep on the bed with me. And so then I had the field fence wrapped around the tent, mounted to the tent poles, which were also secured. And then an additional tarp carport, same one, so that matched with the fence in between. When the wind would blow from one side, that fence would catch the wind, and the other side could just hang straight. And if the wind sucked out on the tent, the inside of the tent would just go against the fence, so that the outside could hang straight. So it wind-proofed it, storm-proofed it, and it goat-proofed it. Okay, but using a thermal scope, a sniper could get my infrared signature through his scope and took a shot at me while I was on the tent. I was sitting on my bed, and Precious, one of my prize goats, deer pet, was laying on the bed next to me. And the bullet entered the tent and went into the mattress between me and the goat, having missed me. And if you look here, I'll insert the picture here. You can see the little hole in the tarp. That hole was caused by the bullet coming through. And as you can see, the bullet nicked my field fence, and that changed the trajectory just enough so that the bullet missed me by a few inches and went into the bed next to me. So the sniper missed. And I just heard the whoop, the ploop, or however you say it, as the bullet went into the mattress, right? And so then that day I took countermeasures. I took 4x4 posts because I had a bunch of them available, and I built inside of my tent wall the 4x4 post all the way around my bed on all three sides along the wall of the tent. That would help stop bullets because of the 4-inch thick wood. It certainly would help stop the thermal scope too, and that way I would feel safe sleeping in the bed. And of course I took other type of countermeasures around becoming much more aware of my surroundings, because now I believed it was real. But who knows, it could have been a stray bullet from a hunter out of the mountains. You don't know. But the thing is that the circumstance of being informed that I was going to kill this, and then a bullet going into the mattress next to where I was sitting, it's got to raise your eyebrows, and you got to now start considering the fact that maybe what he told me was true. Otherwise, I'm thinking, oh, maybe he's just having fun, feed my paranoia, because I'm an anti-government type, and make me happy like the government's out to get me, and he's playing games. But when a bullet actually hits your mattress, you see, it's no longer playing games. I realized he was telling me the truth. About 2 weeks later, I'm walking in the goat pen, and here I'm going to show you a series of pictures. And there was a piece of trash on the ground, and of course I try to clean up. I don't want the goats to eat a little piece of trash or plastic. It's not good for them. And so I stopped walking to bend over and pick up the trash. Well, there was a sniper hidden behind a big tree about 100 feet away, so it's a very close-up shot, maybe a little bit more than 100 feet. The tree was right on the fence line, not my external property fence, but my goat pen fence, you see. And he pulled the trigger, taking a shot at my head right at that same moment that I stopped. And because of that little piece of trash on the ground, my stopping at that same moment meant his shot was a few millimeters, maybe 1 inch off. Okay, it still struck me in the head, but it didn't strike me straight in the temple like he was aiming. But instead, it just skinned my head, going under the scalp skin and coming out of the scalp skin, about a half inch under the skin. The entrance hole being smaller and the exit hole being much larger and blowing away a lot of my skin. So I was so he was either tracking me and then pulled the trigger right as I stopped so that it was off by an inch, or he knew where I was going to walk because he could see where I'm walking, and so he was just in front of me, and then of course as I walked into it he pulled the trigger. Either way, I don't know which method he used. But I never knew what happened to me because the bullet's traveling faster than the speed of the sound, so I didn't hear the gunshot, okay? All I know is the next thing, I'm clasping my head, and I'm on the ground. I think I remember hitting the ground with on my back and my butt, and my hand clasping the spurting blood. But I don't know. I could have been unconscious for 10 minutes, but I think it was instant, or not instant, but half a second. But because, of course, when you're knocked out, it only seems like a half a second. So because you're unconscious, you don't have a sense of time anymore. So who really knows? But the one thing that puzzled me was, why didn't he follow up with a second shot and kill me? If he was a professional sniper, why didn't he ensure that I was dead? Why didn't he study me for a few seconds before leaving? So I was thinking, this doesn't make sense. He must have been an amateur, because he took off immediately after taking the shot instead of double tapping. And it took me a long time to figure this one out. I had to study how the snipers actually work. For one thing, they're going to have a spotter, right? So there would have been at least two people involved, unless the spotter is a drone, which in this case I believe it was. So when he saw through his scope the blood mist coming out of my head, he thought he'd killed me. He thought he'd hit me in the head like he'd aimed. Okay? And a headshot, is almost always fatal. So immediately he took down to make his exit, because with that gunshot it might attract unwanted attention. So he can't hang around. He just assumed, okay? And the same way with his spotter. If his spotter was a drone, the drone would have been directing him, telling him when to take the shot, that there's nobody around, it's safe to take the shot now. But the moment that bullet hits me and the drone also sees me collapsing like a sack of potatoes toward the ground, the drone doesn't study me to make sure I'm dead. What that drone has to do is immediately pivot its camera for their sniper's exit route, because he's got to ensure the sniper doesn't accidentally run into somebody that might be trespassing on my property, or he has to make sure that that sniper has this unobserved safe exit. Okay, so the drone doesn't have time to study me anymore. That camera makes an immediate pivot onto their sniper and onto the route he's taking to exit. Now that route, he actually come down a little bit of an embankment hill into a ravine, and he hiked the ravine out to the road, and probably had a car coming in to pick him up as he hit the road. He would have made sure that there wasn't another car that would be seeing him get into the car. That's why the drone would be monitoring the whole thing. So both the drone and the sniper would have thought they killed me. Okay, and when you look at the headshot, you can kind of see that, right? But the fact is, while the bullet might have grazed my skull, knocking me out because of the energy transfer, it actually didn't fracture my skull because the shot was just off a tiny bit. It did go under my skin. As you know, between the skin and the skull is not a lot of flesh. It's very thin. So I think it was the divine hand of Providence that kept that bullet from fracturing my skull, but it did go under the skin and come out. And I drove myself to the ER. Here you can see the picture of me with my hand still clamped to my head, holding the blood, wound, right, so I don't bleed out as I'm driving myself to the ER. And I still didn't know what had happened to me yet. The doctor says that looked like a gunshot wound, and I said, I think a guy hit in the head with a stick. Well, I had no idea what happened to me. I thought stick, right? Because I was just trying to search for some kind of what created the wound. A guy hit with a stick. Where the stick come from, I don't know. It's just what it came out of my mouth. But then I got to thinking, the doctor says looked like a gunshot wound, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, where in the hell would a stick come from? It does make sense it's a gunshot wound, and I was told I was going to be that I was on a kill list and going to be killed. So now it all started fitting together for me. Okay, and so I went back and I took a large stick, planted it in the ground with a white 8x10 piece of paper at the top of the stick, right where my head would have been, where I was walking, right. And then there was only one possible place because of the tree right above the top of the ravine next to my fence line where the sniper would have been. And so I set up a laser beam there, aimed the laser at the white paper, right? So that it would match up where my head would be. And then I moved the white paper out of the way to see where the laser would go. I was hoping the bullet path would go into a berm. I could take a metal detector and recover the bullet. I never could find the bullet. You know, when it went through my head, it steered the bullet off, and I tried. Okay. But, you know, after 2 gunshots, the second one actually being shot in the head, right after I was told I was on a kill list. Well, the only conclusion I got to believe I am on a kill list. And so one thing I did then was I moved. Um, you know, I left Honolulu, Oahu, where I was living, and I moved to the Big Island. I've been on the Big Island now several years. And I thought that way I get out of the energy, out of the, you know, the whole dynamics of where I was at, and get a fresh start over here. Not that you can actually lose the trail. Who knows when it will catch up with me again. But they got to start all over with new plans as to how to take me out. And obviously, I'm probably low priority when they did get around to trying to kill me a few years back in Honolulu. They probably, at that point, didn't have any higher priority targets. So, you know, somebody lower on the list like myself, time to get him, right? Meanwhile, with the war in Iran and everything going on, there's so much more high priority targets that, man, I've dropped down to the bottom of the list. And let's hope I can stay there. You know, God help me. Thanks for your prayers. Goodbye.